Hello,
Hi, Tracy.
how are you?
Good. How are you feeling?
I'm good.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. How are
all
you?
better?
Oh yeah,
Good. How was
yeah.
it? Really bad?
Um, I had the flu.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Bill and I, we had about 2 weeks of just feeling cruddy and tired and yeah, I mean it was like the flu.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, um, you got the typical fever and chills for the first few days, and then after that, you just did nothing but sleep. So, so yeah, it was just like a long flu.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Well,
I'm sure.
I keep telling Tom that being in house arrest or house quarantine is like being in prison. You sleep more.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I have to acknowledge the fact that I'm still in my 50s and that, I'm relatively healthy, so it didn't hit Bill and I as hard actually because of our age and, that we're relatively healthy. So, I
Mhm.
mean, I don't know what it's like for people who aren't.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Any vulnerability but takes advantage of it.
right, right. So,
Who we
this
with?
it
Who we
sounds like
with?
it looks like Anthony set this up to record as soon as I started the meeting, so it's recording right now. So if,
Oh.
don't say anything like private. Um, so we're waiting for Kevin. Kevin is part of the committee, and then I'm
Mhm.
also invited I've invited Corey, who sits on the town council.
Hmm. Yeah.
He's mentioned to me that he could set it up so that we could do our voting by computer. And I'm interested in hearing how he thinks that can work
Uh-huh.
and how he thinks that we could accommodate the proof of residency requirement and stuff. So I invited him, and
Oh, good.
I will just remind him real quick. And then yeah, Kevin, Kevin's got babies,
Yeah.
but I'm sure he'll be
They
here.
have two. They have another one now.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh.
they had another one. That's all they're
Look,
allowed, right? Two. You're only allowed
that's
two.
right. That's the
Yeah.
CPG. Right. Or he can have two for me. I didn't have any.
That's I've heard people say that, like, you can have my share of babies.
I did happen to get a granddaughter without all the muss and fuss having my own children. So
Oh,
that's
well,
pretty cool.
I don't know if that's
Yeah.
gonna ever happen for me. Like Bill doesn't have any, I don't have any.
Oh, not likely
No,
then.
no, no, unless somebody comes out of the woodwork.
You'll have to adopt one.
Yeah. I'm just I'm not much of a child person, so
I like them at a certain age, like 4 or 5, you know, when they're old enough to speak intelligently and before they go to school and start liking kids their own age and don't care about you anymore.
right, right. I actually kind of like teenagers when they're young, like the 13, 14. I like them, and probably around the 5 or 6 range, because
Yeah.
they're kind of fun and they still want to play, and they're still into you. But
Mhm.
if they're in the early stages, they're way too needy for me. And if they get too old, they get snotty, and
Yeah.
yeah. So there's a couple of good spots that I'm okay with kids. Hi, Corey.
Hello, good to see
So
Hi,
you all.
good to
Corey.
see you
You
too.
too.
So we're waiting for Kevin. Let me just remind him. We were talking about kids because I said Kevin has kids. So his time is not always his. So I don't know. I don't know how people can do it. work full-time jobs and have children. I just I don't know how they can do it. I have a coworker who has 4 children. Yeah, and during this quarantine, she's been working from home, and the kids have also been at home. And they're all different age ranges. I think the youngest one is like 3 or 4, and
Yeah.
I think the oldest one might be 12 by now or
Oh,
something.
put the oldest one in charge.
I'm pretty sure that's what she does.
That's what happened to me.
Yeah. So, but she said, yeah, the kids are always just climbing on me and they just want my attention all the time. And, it's like, I don't know how you guys get any work done at all. All right. Well, either way, with or without Kevin, we have a quorum. And I guess we will just go ahead and get started then. So on the agenda that Kevin typed up, he said that we're going to elect officers for this, but I'm not even really sure that we need officers for this.
I
Oh,
don't
there's
think
Kevin.
It's
Because
kind of an ad hoc thing, isn't it?
yeah, because it's just one. I mean, technically, I think we're just going to have one meeting and hash it all out, and then after that, I think we'll be okay. But I mean, obviously, I'll take notes. Kevin will take notes as well, I'm sure, or at least mental notes, and I think we'll have all the bases covered. And I think we're all adult enough to just, speak up when you have something to say. And yeah, so I don't think we need to be managed here. And then just the rest of the meeting is I'm gonna talk about our elections and how they work, so Corey can get an idea of how they work. And then Corey, if you could tell us about how you foresee a digital voting process to happen based on the requirements that we have. Then after that, we can ask you questions and whatnot and see if it's something that we want to try to do. And if we don't, then we have other options, of course, to try to obtain ballots and signatures and stuff. But the first priority, I think, is to find out if doing this digitally is possible and if it could work for us. So let me just give you a little background about how we do the elections typically. The process is, if a candidate wants to get on the board, they have to submit signatures from the district that they're running for. And that the planning board is divided into, I think, like 7 districts or 8 districts, or an at-large. There's an at-large that covers the entire planning area, but then there's also individual districts. So each candidate has to submit signatures from 20 people if they are going for an election. With that, the type of information that they need to supply from these signatures would be the name or the business name, the address, phone number, and a signature. So at this point, there's no proof of residency as much as just you need to get somebody to sign something allowing you to be on the ballot. Okay, so most people will go and they knock on doors, or they knock on, their business doors or whatever, and they talk to people and they say, hey, I want to get on the ballot, and they get the signatures that they need. It's 20 signatures for any election. So that's anything in March. And then if somebody later wants to be appointed, it's 10 signatures. But at this point, we're just dealing with the 20 signature requirement. Okay, so that's the first step in the process. So that's our candidates. And then after that, after they get their 20 signatures, we or somebody on the committee would go ahead and verify, spot verify or verify those signatures somehow just to prove that they're real. And then after that, they can be placed on the ballot. So the voter responsibilities, oh, go ahead, Virginia, unmute.
They have to have proof of attending one meeting during the previous year also.
Yeah, and that's pretty easy to discover because we have video of everything now. So I can see if they're there. Typically, they just would write down the date that they attended, and we would check our roll call or a role, but since we don't have that, then we can just go back and check the videos. So that is another requirement that they have. Oh, and they also have to have lived or worked or had a business here for 30 days or more. So, okay. So that's the candidate. Then for the voters process is a little different where every voter needs to register, and registering is things like, your address of your home or your business. You have to prove that you've lived here for 30 days at least. You have to submit some proof of this. So the proof would have to be either your driver's license with the address on it, or state ID, or a utility bill showing your name and address, or a business license or tax bill. So they're registering with their information, but they also have to have this proof. And that's, I think, where we're kind of like, I don't know if that's going to be workable if we do this digitally. So that was something I wanted to address with you. And
In
then,
normal elections, just a quick clarification. In normal elections, people who are voting register and vote at the same time. They bring their proof of address with them to vote.
yes. And, some people register beforehand, but most of the time they show up with it when they vote. And then, and then typically, like you said, they would show up and they would vote, or they would mail in all of this information. And I know some people do mail in like a copy of their driver's license or their utility bill and then their ballot. There are some people last year and the year before that just mailed them in. So it is possible to still get mailed in, but this is, more concern about the digital end of it if we can do it. And then the voting happens in a span of, if this was in person, the voting would happen in the span of a meeting. So it would be 3 hours to vote. If they vote by mail, of course, they can submit up to a certain time, and then that would be counted by the end of our typical meeting. So we would have to close the polls at a certain time, like at the end of the meeting, I guess. And then we'd be able to tally it up, or we'd have to be able to do like a quick tally. Does anybody else have did I miss anything? Go ahead, Virginia, just speak up. Yeah.
I have a question about that. They are required to register for each election, not like the other elections where you register once and it carries over from year to year. Is that right?
Yeah, so typically I think they have registered every single year. I think Andrea was trying to avoid having to do that because she started a PDF document, I think 2 years ago, that had searchable information. But the problem with that is, people move and, stuff changes. So I'm not so sure that we should remove that aspect. I think that they should register every year. You don't know. But that's my opinion. I mean, I don't know. You guys have an opinion too.
If so, we should point that out so that it's clear to the voters.
Yeah, I think if we make it like you have to fill this form out before you can vote, I think it'll be clear. Yeah. Okay, so did I miss anything?
For Corey's sake than anything else, there's a way that we've done things, but then there's the bylaws, and the bylaws give us some flexibility to be creative if there's a way that we can shift the scheduling around a little bit, as long as we meet the bylaw. It doesn't necessarily have to happen overlapping with our normal meeting. There's some flexibility there. So don't feel too confined, I guess, by what we've all discussed so far.
Yeah, Kevin and I both went over the bylaws, and then we went over council policy, and we actually couldn't find anything that would prevent us from voting digitally. There was nothing in our bylaws for that. As far as, when the candidates announce, when the candidates have to get signatures, when the planning board announces the winners. The winners, I think, have to be announced. I think it's actually stated in the bylaws that they're announced at the end of the meeting. So we would have to have the tabulations by the end of the meeting. But that would be easy, close it and boom, do the tabulations. But then as far as like when the people have to announce their candidacy and, when the signatures have to be in, those are all very, very flexible. And just as a side note, I think that Peninsula has bylaws that say that people cannot vote by mail, like very specifically called out that they cannot vote by mail, which is why they've been having trouble with their elections the last couple of years because of COVID. Nobody's wanting to come out and fill out a ballot in person. And their bylaws specifically say that they can't vote by mail. And Kevin and I both thought, maybe we have something in our bylaws that prevents that, but there's nothing. Like, we don't have anything. So it's kind of opened us up a little bit to be able to do an election, a good one. So, Corey, what do you think is possible?
Yeah. Are there? I'm wondering from your guys' perspective with address verification, is there potential for an audit? Are there specific types of records you would want kept, or is this mostly kind of a self-policed thing where you guys as the committee say, like, yeah, we ran a valid election? Does that make sense?
I don't know that we've ever gone to any great lengths to, throw out,
Create a paper trail.
but I mean, if I were checking them, I'd take a sample, and if I don't find any abnormalities there, I would certify it. But that's my opinion.
Jane?
Well, when they register to vote, all they do is show proof of residency in the district, and then they handed a ballot.
Yeah, and somebody would actually check. Like, when I was running the table, I would make sure that their address was inside the district that they were allowed to vote in.
Yep.
The one little caveat to that kind of throws a loop into everything is people are allowed to vote for one person in the district and an at-large member if they wish.
Mhm.
So the at-large has to be available to everyone, and then the district candidates are only available to people who live in that district. And I don't know how we could do that digitally, how we can verify that.
Yeah, but we would have a ballot with the names of the people who are running in the district, and then add-ons for the people who are at large.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like everyone votes for their own, county supervisor, but then they all vote for the same at-large governor. Really, that's
Right,
essentially
yeah.
how
Mhm.
that is. So yeah, everyone gets two choices. So the ballots typically have all the options for all the areas, and then they select, hey, I live in area 1, and I pick one candidate there, and then I pick an at-large candidate. We were talking about verification. I was talking actually more about signatures. Ballots are easy to verify because they're having to provide some kind of identification with an address, whether it's utility bill.
Mhm.
They're going to go to the trouble of photoshopping utility bill, whatever. but
Go
I
for
mean,
it.
that's a pretty easy part. I guess the challenge I think for most voters is, someone that maybe doesn't have the ability to make a copy of something like that to provide it in a digital fashion. Well, let's face it, not everyone has a smartphone, right? And that's sort of a burden for people. So they can still mail it in if they want. I think I beat Jane by one vote over mail-in ballots. So they certainly, people do it.
So from a technological perspective, I mean, there are, I would say, probably half a dozen or more options about how to go about this. I think originally I was the very first thing when Tracy and I were talking about this a couple months back. I had recommended an option with 2 phases, mainly because you guys had done some sort of like pre-qualification, or at least I was under the impression that there was like a pre-qualification stage where you could submit your residency documents and then receive a PIN number back from the organization that would qualify you as a voter. And then when you go to submit your votes, you have to enter your PIN number, and that's what would validate the vote. I kind of feel like a simpler option would be to handle all of that at once and set it up so that your ballot includes like a residency verification portion where someone goes on. Maybe the first step is to self-identify which district they live in. We could go as far as to set up a world where we like build out or somehow obtain like a database of addresses and divide them out by a district, and then have somebody input their address and have the system tell them what district they're in. The work that goes into that is probably, well, it's for sure a lot more than just asking them to self-verify. And in thinking about like porting what you all have done in person to the virtual world, there's a lot of manual verification, right? In terms of like just kind of spot checking the address and knowing where it is and then knowing if it's in the right district. So, I mean, we can of course make the robots do all of that work if y'all want to. Or we could set it up where essentially kind of the same thing that happens in person is transmitted digitally, where it's like, hey, here's the map. What district do you live in? And they select that. And then it says, okay, what address are you? And they input that. And then it says like, okay, prove it. Snap a photo of something that shows us you live there. And then they input that. And then it directs them to a contextualized ballot based on what district they live in, which only shows them the list of candidates that they're eligible to vote for, including the folks in their district, plus any of the at-large members that they're eligible to vote for. They submit the ballot. So that tool, doing it that way, I mean, I could build that out in like an hour.
Wow.
Well, because it's taking all of the work of verification and putting it on someone else to go through all of that data and be looking at it. Like the tool is not that impressive. It's just a form, right? It kind of has a series of like checks to direct people to the right votes to put in. So it would then be on you all some of you to go through the data and validate each entry. And from what I understand, like if we're dealing with, I think of things from like a net time input perspective. So like if we're dealing with 50 to 100 pieces of data, and you've got 1 or 2 people who are willing to go through it and just put a little checkbox next to each of the pieces of data and say, yeah, that looks good, that looks good, that looks good. And we're not all that concerned with like double, triple, quadruple checking the data against legitimate databases. Probably the net input of time is going to be lowest that way, as opposed to building out a system where, they input their address, it checks against an address database, and then anyways, we can do all of that too. And for me, by the way, this is, I'm currently sitting in North Carolina where I'm running an election for an Episcopal church. So doing virtual elections and things like that is part of my professional work, and I'm happy to take the time to do it for the town. And also I like challenges and like thinking about ways that data gets manipulated and all of the different ways that we can like handle that. So this was kind of like geeky, fun, nerdy stuff for me.
Get you a contract with the entire city to run all the paid contracts.
Yeah.
Running board elections, because they're
So
spend
Corey,
the money on it, though, unfortunately. But
So
another
my
caveat is
my
they-
question is, oh, go ahead, Kevin.
so
Sorry.
the city has known about this problem for over a year, and places like the Point Loma board, didn't even have an election last year. They had to carry on with their terms beyond their because they had no way of running an election. And many other boards did this, and the city still hasn't given any direction on how to do this. So they might come up with something completely way out there. I think what we're talking about here sounds safe, but it's ridiculous because we're already supposed to establish our election process basically right now, and they haven't come back to us. So
I don't think they're going to.
Crazy out there, then we may have to reevaluate a few things.
I don't think they're going to, Kevin. I think that they have just let planning boards figure it out. And, because they would probably tell us, look at your bylaws and what do your bylaws say? Well, our bylaws don't really have anything about this. So I don't think, if we can do a legit and safe election, I don't think the city's going to say any two bits about it. So
they had their chance to give us some direction. They're late to the game. They got a bunch of old farts that are not tech savvy, that are afraid of COVID. It's not a good recipe for running elections in any of the other places, but I think we can do it without them. So
yeah.
I would say the only, or maybe not the only, but the first kind of like yellow red flag from like a city perspective, or just even from like a regular like risk assessment perspective, would be that people would be submitting personal documents to this group of people, and that we would be creating a local system that handles that, where it would not be going through any sort of like, all of the servers are secure, but it's self-created, right? Like at the level. So I would say that is to me, that's the biggest flag that goes up in the system. And if I were at the city in like, risk assessment, that's the first thing that I would care about, is like, you guys just collected X number of pieces of data of like people's pictures of people's driver's licenses. And, we can create internal processes around that data in terms of like its use and deletion, secure deletion, and things like that. But it's still internal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's no real way to like prove that to anyone.
Right. So Jane had a question. So Jane had a question first.
Well, no, why don't we just decide that everybody can have their terms extended a year and not bother with an election?
That's another option.
I think that's weird, because then everybody would have to extend for 2 years, because that would what would happen is the odd numbered people, the odd numbered people would get their free year and the even people would not. So it would throw everything around. And I think that that's more complicated and just burdensome. And having people run for more than their time that's specifically in the bylaws is kind of funky. Like, we have very specific terms and everything that are laid out in the bylaws. And I think by doing that would change the bylaws. So, anyways.
I think it's simple to do. I think you just flip the even and odd seats and extend it. I'm not saying we should. I think it's doable.
Yeah. Virginia, what do you have?
About the personal identification information, do we have to keep that, or could we is it commonly done that someone will verify it and then delete it? They will certify that it was correct and then just delete it, and we don't have to worry about the risk.
So in the past, we have collected all this data manually, and I have 2 years of everybody's driver's licenses and documents in my folder here at home. So that's not really the most secure way either. Like, technically, I should take all of those and shred them. So a couple of questions that I had for Corey were, is it easy to, what Virginia just said, once somebody verifies that they live in a district, click a button and it dumps their verification data? It just dumps it and deletes it. Is it possible to do that?
But then we have to personally verify it, though.
Right. Well, this is like, so somebody would get into the system, like you or me, we would be in charge of verifying the locations. then once we verify that they're in the district that they say they are, we check a box and say, this has been verified, and then it deletes their personal identification stuff. It won't delete it until we verify it.
It could be audited afterward, but they'd have to be your word that it was certifiable.
Correct.
Yeah.
Here's my thinking.
How many people do you see at an election that doesn't know what district they're in?
So the year that I did this, which was like 2 years ago, I probably had a handful of people that were coming and registering and they didn't know what district they lived in and they had to refer to the map. Last year, since I wasn't part of the committee, I don't know how many people were referring to that map. I don't know. And then, Corey, how
I'm thinking
long?
we're making something more complicated than it needs to be.
Well, my concern is if we let people just drop something in a ballot box, nobody's going to be verifying it. There's going to be driver's licenses sitting in a ballot box somewhere. There's, you know, and there's no one there to help them or kind of say, no, you don't live in that district, where a computer could say, no, you don't live in that district. You know, I mean, so another question I had is how would we obtain the address thing that you were talking about, like getting a bunch of addresses that would be specified districts, and then they would put in their address, and then it would say, yay or nay, you're in this district.
I think that's easy to do. We know what streets are in which districts and which address ranges. So it'd be like a drop-down list. Once they select those, it knows their district. Back to the
But that's a
verification.
programming thing.
I think we can keep it simple. So when you sit there in person at the desk, you look at their ID or whatever, and you say, okay, you're in D2, you can vote for D2, and you take their ballot. You don't save that information, right? So there's no way to go back. Yeah, but if they go in person to vote, you don't take a picture of their ID, right?
But mail-in ballots, we've always kept them.
Well, I
They
get
send
that.
them in.
I get that because that's the only way to see it. My point is, if you have the ability to see something that they input online, and then you are able to verify it and print the thing out, it's done. You don't have to save the information.
But I think the
All you
verification
have to
isn't
do is say,
necessarily
I looked,
what
I
district.
verified this, and person B also verified this, and it's verified. That's it. The data is not saved. The data is not saved on the in-person voting either. There's no way to go back later and double check those in in-person voting. So why do we need that? Why do we need that?
But the verification, Kevin, isn't necessarily for what district they live in. It's to prove that they are in the planning area, period, like the entire planning area. Because I mean, otherwise you can have people that say, oh, I live at XYZ, but yet their license and nothing that they, own lives in XYZ.
Well,
So
I
it's
guess
not, it's not necessarily what district they're in.
I'm just saying we don't have to save their information.
Well, no, that's what Virginia said, is that if they put it in and we verify it, somebody on the other end verifies it, then we just check a box and it goes away. We're not saving it for anything.
Yeah, and then print the ballot out and it's done.
Yeah.
It's a certified ballot at that point.
Yeah.
And whichever names of whoever certified it.
Can I back up a little bit? I don't have an idea of how many total voters we expect. 50 or something like that.
Let me see.
I would just say 100. It's going to be less than 100. Well, we have 8 seats. It's probably between 50 and 100.
Okay. For some reason, I knew that this was going to get asked about. Planning Board 2020.
I mean, I think I literally got like 8 votes.
I think I got 5, including myself.
We're not heavy hitters here.
So 20, 24, 32, 40, 60, like under 100. Put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with a couple people, there are a lot of things we can do manually.
But, also keep in mind that if we open this up digitally, we might get more votes. So
That's true.
Yeah.
Totally
Yeah.
true.
You know, a lot of people, they don't want to come out at night and vote, and you know it's cold and blah, 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 so they don't want to do it in person, but they might sure as hell do it digitally.
So they basically need the ability to vote electronically and upload a photo or a PDF of a bill or identification with an address, and
Right.
that's it.
And that's
and
it.
and then they select the district, or they put in their address, qualifying address, and it picks the ballot for them.
I like to
And
pick
they
the ballot
select it,
for them.
And then
I
it
like to
prints
pick
out-
it for them. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we print out those ballots, have a paper record without their identifying info. These are secret ballots, so it can't have their name on it even.
Yeah. I mean, once they're verified, I think that it's important that we like grab their email address or something. And then if there is a problem with their ballot, somebody can shoot them an email real quick and say there was a problem with your ballot or whatever. But other than that, I mean, we don't need to keep that information. So how Corey was laying it out earlier actually sounded really good to me. Like, so the person logs in and they enter their information, their address, and their name to register themselves. And then a map will pop up, and then people can visually select what district they live in, and then the ballot will auto-populate for them. So I think that that's probably the easiest way.
That works.
And then we don't have to worry about like addresses or anything like that. We could just say, you know, what district do you live in? They're going to type in their address. If they can't figure out what district they live in by a map, then we have some problems. so, so I mean, does that work, or do you guys want to really do the data, the address verification thing?
I don't think there'd be that much fraud between districts within OB. I mean, we don't want developers coming in and voting from another district
Yeah,
outside of OB. But if one person makes a mistake and chooses the wrong district, it's not going to really affect anything that much.
I don't want to end up on Fox News.
yeah. Local planning board has
Yeah.
illegal elections.
Dead people voting. You know?
Yeah, yeah. You know, seriously, this is OB and anything can happen, right? Okay, so are we kind of in agreement that we want to try a digital route?
Yeah, I say digital.
We kind of
and
have
digital
to.
What'd you say, Kevin?
I say digital and mail in, and have it all in one package, one process, just like the mail in is. You verify it and you vote in the same field.
Do we want to also have a place where people could go and drop a ballot in person? Like just drop it in a box somewhere?
But where would that be?
I would say the business center.
It would be the business center, maybe with a stamp, and they just
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be nice.
Okay.
Another option.
50 cents.
Yeah. I mean, you know, one of the things in the bylaws basically said that, you know, to encourage as much public participation as possible, which I think is, you know, however we can get these to people is, you know, important. So, Corey, does everything that we have, has everything that we've discussed sound doable and quickly
Yeah.
implement? Okay, cool.
What's the timeline?
Okay, so that's something that we need to talk about because we don't have any of our dates or anything figured out yet. I mean, it depends on when we want to open up voting, but we can't open up voting until people get their candidate signatures together. So it kind of has to backtrack from there.
I believe the candidates have signatures in by February meeting in order to get on the ballot.
Okay.
Some people won't accomplish that, and they will be write-in candidates.
Oh God, write-in candidates. I forgot about them. Is that a hard thing to do, Corey?
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, Kevin, can you elaborate on that?
So, so anyone that doesn't get their signatures done in time, which happens with the regular board members, and it happens with some new people, the only way they can get elected is simply by write-ins on the ballot for whatever district they're going for. And they have to provide their signatures, I think, prior to the meeting when the votes are counted
Got it.
for that to qualify. So, I forgot what I was going to say. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, people could write in Mickey Mouse if they want to, right? And then if you go to count the ballots, the Mickey Mouse gets thrown out because that's not a, they didn't turn in signatures, 20 signatures.
Got
So
it.
they just need an open text box on the form, really.
Yeah, that's easy enough.
Okay.
And we
So
do-
February 3rd is our recommended signature submission day. And then at that point, we will know who the candidates are that are going to officially be on the ballot.
Who do they submit the signatures to?
So that was I was going to talk about signatures and stuff with you guys after we let Corey go, because Corey's just involved in the voting end of it. And the signature gathering is going to have to be something different than what we normally do. So I don't know how we're going to even do that.
Hi, Corey.
Well, before we let Corey off, so we need to give him very detailed, essentially what the web interface is going to look like. And there's going to be certain instructions that have to be on there as well. For example, if I own a business and then I live in another district, I have to pick one of those. I can only vote in one of those two choices plus the at-large, right? So, so that's one example. So we have to add clear instructions. We have some of that already. But we can
Yeah.
maybe relook at that and get that to him so he knows what the people need to see and keep it as, obviously as simple as possible.
Okay, so I mean, we have our standard forms that we've used, and I've kind of updated them over the last few months. I can send you those forms, and you can weed out of it the rules and the information that you would need. And then on those papers also are links to the map that we use. So you can just click on the link, and then there's also like more detailed rules that they can click on too. So I can send you all of that, but I want to make sure that I get the forms updated with the proper dates and everything before we give them off to you.
Yep. Yeah, and you'll include
Okay.
on there, like when you want the form to go live, when you want it to come down, all of that stuff, right?
Yeah, and that we have to talk about amongst the committee, like when do we want to open up voting and when we want to close voting. So,
Cool.
I would say it can go live after the February meeting, or shortly after.
you want to give people almost a whole month to vote?
Well, it's going to be sometime after that meeting because that's when the ballot is going to be established, right? So it's just a matter of some administrative work after that meeting to go live. The ballot shouldn't change. If they haven't qualified for the ballot at that point, they're a write-in, period. So the ballot is established in early February.
Yeah, but I don't also want to be like making changes or updates until like the last possible minute. So if we could get that form done and ready by like the 10th, do you think you could do that, Corey? Get everything like up, set up?
Yeah, for sure. No problem.
And there's going to be some districts where there's just one person running. It's going to be like the Russian presidential election.
Yeah, and then we can, when do you guys want to open the form? Like, when do you want to open the ballots?
You mean the
I would-
voting?
Yeah,
For
I'd say
online
see-
voting,
it's
for online voting.
a week then?
So our March meeting is March 3rd. And then if we wanted to backtrack that a week, it would be February 24th.
I'd say 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'd give 2 weeks.
I don't see what the harm is.
Okay, so we can open the ballot on the 17th.
Mhm.
Okay. And then when do you guys want to close the ballot? Now, this is a point of issue that I have with voting during these meetings, is because if you're on the committee and you're like helping people vote and counting stuff, you're missing the meeting.
Yeah.
I would technically rather have it closed before the meeting, a day or two, and then we can count them and make the announcement fully at the meeting and still be able to participate in the meeting.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Tracy.
I think it sounds like everything should close. Well, I guess it's just mail in and online. That'll close at the beginning of the March meeting.
So
No, the day before.
The 28th.
I don't know if we're allowed to do that, but I'll have to double check.
yeah, so we could either close it. The thing is, like I said, if not, you have to sit there and you have to count everything and get everything situated during the meeting. And like I said, if you're on the committee and you're doing that, you're actually missing the meeting.
The meeting.
So if we can, I would actually prefer to close voting, like the 2nd.
All right,
In
I'm
the
okay with
morning.
that if the bylaws
I think
allow.
that's a good idea, Tracy.
So we could just say March 2nd.
Like midnight the day before the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that way, whoever's in charge of counting and tabulating can do it during the day
Yeah,
on the
but
3rd, and then we
say-
can act
say March 2nd at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
6 p.m.
I'd say midnight makes more sense.
Yeah, let's midnight's
7:59.
okay.
But
So
I'm
March.
trying to get it 4:59 p.m.
So we're going to close ballots at March 2nd at midnight for
I'm checking
online.
the bylaws right now.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, there's something in there about like voting, when the voting has to happen and blah, blah, blah. And I think it does say that it has to happen during a meeting, which is really annoying to me.
The main issue that they're trying to do is they don't want you voting in a meeting because we're prohibited from having secret voting in a meeting.
Yeah,
That's
but we
the
haven't
reason
even
they
been
start-
doing that right either. Last couple of years, we've had the table inside the meeting room, and
But it's
really,
not part of the meeting. It's separate from the meeting. It's just some people in the corner. So that's
yeah, but it's still, you're still there and everybody can see you vote, and it's not secret when you do that. So, yeah, my friend Christoph,
I'll check the
he came
bylaws.
to vote for me that one time, and he was like super embarrassed that he had to walk in the meeting, and everybody's head turned, and they were like, "What?" And he was just like, "That's super embarrassing, and I don't really want to do that again." So,
Well, that happens at the post office or the rec center for the elections too. So.
Tracy, I have to leave the meeting in a couple of minutes.
okay, that's fine. Did you get a chance to look at any of the forms or anything that I sent over?
Yeah, I thought the forms were fine.
Okay, other than dates and times and stuff.
Other than times, the candidate petition, I really like that, the phone number and the signature. And the candidate information form looked okay. And
Okay.
then on the candidate instructions, that's where the only changes need to be made on the dates.
Okay, cool. The only thing is also, did you have any suggestions for, I'm sorry, Corey, we're going to have to hold on to you for just a little bit longer. Did you have any suggestions for how people are supposed to obtain signatures this year?
Well, in my neighborhood, we could get the signatures. But I don't know how other neighborhoods interact.
Yeah, because Andrew was concerned about knocking on people's doors and people not answering the door.
Yeah.
Well, as long as you're wearing a mask.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've been working in people's homes for the past 8-9 months, doing inspections and stuff for my job. And most people, I think, are okay, at least with a bit of interaction. I mean, certainly if they want to do door hangers or something like that, where that's the part that's really, it's hard to check on all those people.
Yeah.
That's going to be the case regardless.
Yeah.
If they want to do some system where they sign something and they pick it up or mail it to them, that's on them really.
Okay.
And it may be just that they have a bunch of signature sheets that just have one person on them, right? As long
And
as
then again, more people might be vaccinated.
Yeah, maybe. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but,
Andrew seemed very concerned that, he wouldn't be able to talk to any of his neighbors or whatever because nobody would answer the door. But honestly, I agree with Kevin. It's kind of on them. If they want to run, they're going to figure out how to do it. And most of the people I talked to were outside anyways.
Yeah.
And and we're going to be wearing masks. And I don't think it's that difficult to gather signatures, at least, So, okay. So we maybe we won't worry about that this year then. Okay.
Okay, I have to go.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Happy New
Bye.
Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, so the election has to be held the same day as the March meeting, but separate from it, so that it's not, so that there aren't secret voting occurring during a meeting, in a meeting.
So I don't know how we're going to handle ballot boxes then, because somebody's going to have to leave the meeting to go pick up the ballot box.
Well, it's the same day, so we can have that's something I feel like that's going to maybe go away when the city figures out which way is up on this. Because there's no one's going to be walking into a meeting to vote. So, I mean, we can extend the deadline until the meeting day just to make sure we comply with it. 12:01 a.m.
Can we amend the bylaws at the February meeting?
No, it has to go through the city. So
So you're basically saying then that the ballots have to continue to be collected up through what point?
well, it doesn't specify on that. Obviously, mail-ins accrue over time. It just says the election has to occur on the day of the meeting. So, which means it means accepting in-person votes normally and counting all the mail-in votes, the electronic votes, happens on that day.
Like noon until noon? Would that work?
But of course, we don't have any walk-in voting going
Yeah.
on, and that's not even permitted. So I feel like that it has to go away. There's no way that we have to follow that bylaw.
So Corey, how quickly will this tabulate? Like once we close it, when can we get the results?
Are you planning to pre-certify each of the votes?
Oh yeah, see, we have to do that. There has to be time to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll have numbers right away. So, immediately, assuming that no votes get thrown out, then, the numbers will report themselves, if that makes sense.
So
Why don't we do it
let's
at 10 a.m. or noon and then cut it off and then certify the ballots, throw some out at that point, and then we'll have it ready by the board meeting, and the election will have occurred on the day of the meeting as well.
Okay, so March 3rd then at noon is when we're going to close it? Okay. So March 3rd at noon now, we're going to close the virtual.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's when we would also pick up the
Box.
mail-in ballots. I don't know when the mail shows up there.
Well, Andrea usually picks up the mail. Picks up mail-in ballots by noon.
And the
then-
Dropbox.
And pick up Dropbox by noon. Okay. And then that way, like whoever's in charge of doing that would be in charge of counting. So for example, like if I want to go pick up the Dropbox, I'll be the one counting and certifying those. And then whoever picks up the mail.
Two people do that, right?
Oh,
I don't know.
well, I'm immune from COVID. So
Hey, let's get together. Let's hang out.
I know. So Kevin and I can get together.
There you go. We got our COVID-free counting rate.
I know. All right. So, I mean, I'll volunteer to like pick up the boxes and if Kevin, do you have access to the mail?
No, I think only Andrea has the key.
Okay. So maybe what she can do then is she can grab it and then drop it at my house. And
Yeah.
then if there's two people that need to certify these, we can figure that out. Like you know, the COVID crowd can get together and we can just sit out on my patio and, you know, verify everything.
Cough on each other. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's good. I don't like the idea of having one person looking at these. We need some poll watchers.
Yeah. Actually, you know, we could do, well, I mean, just as far as logistics go, I could either come to your house with all the mail in and drop offs, or you can come to mine. Either way.
Either way, we can figure that.
Okay. Okay. Okay, cool. All right. So it sounds like we're going to definitely have three different ways of voting. We're going to have digital, which Corey is going to set up for us. We're going to have ballot boxes, and we're going to have mail-ins. And Corey, do you need anything else from us? No. Okay. So, do you want to get a proof to me? I mean, when do you, because I think we said February 10th was when we needed the actual form to work. But then do you want to get a proof to me? Like, I don't even know what day it is. What day are we?
12.
Okay. When I'm going to ask you, because we have some time, when can you get a proof to me for the digital and we can test it?
I could have fake names on it.
I would say within a week after you get me all of the verbiage.
Okay. That is no problem. Okay, I can get you, I'll get you the stuff this week.
Perfect. Yeah, then I'll have
Through the
a proof
15th.
to you guys next week sometime.
To Corey, and then proof 1 week after. Okay. Yeah, and then what I'll what I'll do is I'll send that proof link or whatever you want to send it to all of us on the committee so that we can run through it and
Perfect.
just make sure everything works good. And then after that, then we'll just wait for our changes or our launch date.
Great.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Corey. I really appreciate your help.
Happy to
And
help, guys.
I'm super excited about this, and I'm kind of like hoping that maybe if it works really well this time, we can do it forever and ever and ever. Because I think that I think digital voting is kind of the way to go.
It is now 2021. So
I know. I mean, unless you're like a a terrified of computers kind of person, you know.
yeah.
But I think for like 100 people, I think it's not that big of a deal. I mean, Peninsula has hundreds and hundreds of people voting. Like,
They should be
They all
available.
hate each other.
Come on.
yeah, and they all hate each other. It's kind of funny. All right,
Keep it
cool.
up, guys. Have a
Thank
good
you
night.
very much. Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's see. So we've agreed that the candidate signatures have to be to us by February 3rd at the meeting time.
I think by the end of the meeting,
Okay.
yeah, is what the bylaws.
End of meeting. Okay. And then who are they going to submit these to?
Are you still at your meeting?
Whoever's the chair of the election committee, I think.
Virginia?
What?
Are you still at your meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we could have them
I
sent.
think I might go to the yacht club and do some laps in the pool.
Yeah, you should go there, Nick.
Sounds awesome, Nick. Go have some fun. So don't we have an email address that people can like take a picture of and send it to us? That would be easier
For what?
for the signatures.
Hmm.
Can we make a email forward that's like elections at oceanbeachplanning.org? It forwards. That'd be something good to have going forward.
I think we actually have one, but I'll double check on that. And then that would be where they would just send copies or PDFs or whatever of their signatures. And then I think Andrea would just spot verify those. So you know, we don't have to call every single person on the list, just spot verify.
I would set anything that goes to that email to go to the election chair and the chair.
We don't have one because we didn't vote for one.
Well, we still can. We're
Yeah,
supposed to on all our subcommittees. We still have a quorum.
I vote for Jane. No.
That's a dirty trick.
I don't have to be secretary. I'm okay with it.
No, they can go to me. I'll take them. I'll go ahead and take them.
Can they be submitted to the website?
The website isn't really it's not really
It emails somebody.
yeah, there's always an email address that it has to go to through the website. So there wouldn't be submitting it to the website. They'd just be submitting it to a person or
That's
an
what-
email address.
I think that's
So-
like web comment that goes to Andrea.
Yeah, the web comment
the-
one goes to her.
Yeah, the point of having the dedicated emails is it's more professional, and then when the chair changes hands or the
Yeah.
project review committee person changes hands, all we have to do is change those emails, and we can keep reusing, the same forms and stuff like that.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I think we
like
I think we do have
elections.
one. So I'll check it out. Now something else that's on our paperwork is that every year there's a candidate forum, and the candidate forum usually took place at the town council. Now, obviously, yeah, we're not going to be able to do that this year, right?
Has that ever
So-
happened? Did that happen
Yeah.
last time?
I think it did last year. They set up a time, but I don't think anybody showed up. And then the year that I ran and that you ran, they had one, and some people did show up. I didn't show up, but I don't even know if a candidate forum is necessary.
If they want to speak, they can do it at the February meeting. We can even give them some time.
I think that that's fair. So they can speak in non-agenda public comment for.
If they don't have their signatures by then, they can still speak and say, "I'm gonna get them. Write me in."
Okay. So February 3rd at our meeting. Okay. And that'll be virtual as well. Okay. And then the other things was the location of our drop-off boxes. I wasn't sure if we wanted to have one or two because the business center isn't necessarily direct center from our planning area, but I think that they would probably be more accepting of taking a box from us than, maybe the pet store or something, although the pet store might do it.
No, the business center definitely. We already have our PO box there.
Okay.
I had ballots when I went and handed out mail-in ballots to people. This is how I beat Jane. It wasn't because I'm likable. I did it because I prepared ballots. I put a little info sheet about myself. I distributed them. I think I distributed 50 of those things. They were pre-addressed to the PO box, and they had the ballots printed in there and everything. But I had the addresses wrong. Was kind enough to make sure they went to the right place. And
Man.
9 of those got actually returned, which actually is a pretty good return rate. I was actually surprised. So, anyways, I think the Paraguays would be happy to assist with that. They can't legally stick things in our PO box, only the mailman can do that.
So we will have to create a box then, right? Like a separate little box.
They'll
Okay.
they'll have to have something there they can stick anything in.
Okay. That's no problem. I can do something with that. So we're just going to
I'll
do.
contact them. They seem to love me over there, so I can ask them.
Okay. And then make sure that they're, I mean, I don't know, we could just leave the box out there, for the entire month. I mean, you decide when we want to put the box out and when we're going to pick up the box.
I'm
But
not
we
sure
should
how
probably
operating-
time it the same as the virtual, don't you think?
So noon.
Yes, it has to be. I mean, because and whoever picks up the PO box is going to pick that up as well. It's going to have to be inside. I'm not sure how they're operating currently. They have a little desk at the window, I think. So it would have to be something there. It has to be inside. There's
Okay.
too many cretins crawling around their business at night.
Cool. Okay. So noon at noon on the 3rd then is when we'll pick it up.
Yeah, and maybe put the box out at the same time that the virtual or online voting begins.
And we
The
decided
17th, I think.
the 17th. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
So
That's February 17th.
February.
Okay.
when is the March meeting?
March 3rd.
So we'll just say noon to noon.
Okay. And I'll type up all of these notes that I've taken just so that you guys can read them and confirm. Make sure that I didn't imagine something. Seriously.
Tracy,
The older, like, the more, stuff like that happens. So,
Still feeling a bit feverish, are you?
I was pretty much out of it for like a month. I couldn't remember anything. It was like gone. Okay. And then as far as the forms go, did you guys have any additional like comments to them? Anything that you'd like to see added?
I do.
Oh, I think since we're combining the process where it's all done at the same time, I don't think it's necessary to really make a point of it being a two-part process. It's becoming a one-part process. Registration and voting is all one.
So the forms have to be, it has to be 2 pages. One with the information to register,
Yeah.
and then one ballot so that it's not, so it's still a secret ballot basically. Once it's certified, that comes apart.
But they're done on the same occasion at the same time, so we don't have to tell people you have to register and then you vote. But
So
just-
the last couple of years, I've combined them into one file, like page 1, page 2, and then the instructions were on a page as well. So it's kind of like a 3-page document, which works out perfect because the registration info and the instructions are on one page, and then the ballot is on page 3.
right.
So it made it easy enough to do that. Oh, and we should actually,
Trimming those down to 2 pages. And so,
yeah, if you want to try to like limit all of the crap that we have to tell people to 2 pages, more power to you. Because I've looked at that over and over again, and I was like, I don't know. I don't think it's possible. I've really looked at it, but please feel free. I'll send you the Word doc, and you can mess around all you want. Because I would rather kill less trees. But your point though of having the ballot being on a completely separate piece of paper actually works in the favor of having it be a 3-page document, because that ballot will be on the 3rd page.
well, the ballot would have instructions. The registration would have instructions. I don't know.
Yeah.
I
mean,
the signature form for the candidates. There was a few things. Maybe I'm picky. But you had the renter, property owner. You had something that didn't match up with our bylaws, and I don't know if that's who actually made that thing, but the categories are property owner or resident, which obviously you can be both, right? And business owner / agent. In fact, I think property owner, you can be an agent of a property owner.
so
You
we're
can literally be
changing.
an Airbnb host, and you can vote in our election.
So change the word renter to resident,
Yeah.
and then what were your other changes?
So it should be property owner / agent. Let me verify that. Which I think is ridiculous, but that's what the bylaws say.
I don't remember the word agent being on anything, but
Yeah, so I can basically allow someone to vote on my behalf if I'm a property owner, which I think is insane. Like if they represent my interests of my property ownership.
that's crap.
It's in the bylaws. I I don't like it.
Prove it, prove it, prove it. And then what
Um,
was the business owner one need to be changed to?
I think that one is fine.
Okay.
And then in the obviously in the instructions, it has to explain that you have to provide some kind of, this or that to verify.
Oh, you know what? Property. So on the candidate information and all these other forms that people have to fill out, it says property owner, resident, business owner / licensee.
Business owner. Well, if you're the license holder for the business, but not the owner of the business. Okay, so business owner / licensee. That's one category. Resident is another, and then property owner / agent is the other.
Okay.
And then so yeah, that I think how that was in there was fine. They either check a box or they put P, R, or B. The checkbox is actually easier because they could check multiple boxes. And then the instructions will just say pick one qualifying address. You can only vote in one district.
Yeah, that's something that we actually don't have on any of our forms. Let's see. So I will add that. You can only vote one time.
Or you can only vote for one district seat. You can only vote in one district. And online, it's going to have to be the same thing. They're going to be like, well, but I have 3 addresses in OB.
So we should word that differently then. You may only use one qualifying address. Does that sound right? To vote one time?
I would say, I don't know, something like that. I would say you can only vote for one district. So if you have multiple qualifying addresses, choose one in the district you wish to vote for, or something to that effect.
District. And only use one address. Okay, I'll add that. I'll add it and then you guys can proof it and tell me what you think.
And they'll leave it up to them to choose which district they belong to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they get 2 votes though. That's the thing, because they vote for an at-large and they vote for a district seat.
Oh, yeah.
The other thing I noted, there was one other. Do we want to collect people's email addresses on the candidate petition?
I would say make it optional, and that can sign them up for the website
Yeah, I don't want to sign people up for the website.
if they choose to. I mean, we need to build that.
That would require me to add like a box that says, "Do you want to be added to?" But you know what? We never send out emails anyways.
Well, they get the agendas on there.
I mean, we do, but it's so rare.
I had people reluctant to give their phone number because they didn't want to get a lot of calls.
Yeah, so I can say, well, how about we do phone number or email?
That's fine. I mean, what's required? I guess is really the question.
I don't think
that someone third party can check it.
Yeah, it has to be verifiable. That's the only thing.
A name and an address, I can do a lot with those. Phone numbers and emails don't with anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they could put a fake name. I don't ask people for identification when they sign up.
No, and no, we don't. I mean, even the United States, California doesn't require a license to register to vote. So but I think it was mainly for verification.
You can get 20 signatures on your own block and you pretty much know everybody. So.
Yeah, but so like I said, Andrea would verify these signatures and she would just kind of spot verify, and I think she just would make a phone call. So it was probably faster for her to make a phone call than it was to like type up an email and then sit and wait, because some people never ever respond to email.
Yeah.
Plus it might go in a spam, so it's easier just to call and leave a message. Who, me? But like I think it's easier to just call somebody really quick and leave a message and say, "Hey, this is so and so from OB Planning Board. We're just calling to verify your signature on a candidate petition," and just leave it at that.
What is the
And
process for that? Has any of you guys participated in that? Because I mean, like, say if you don't have a competitive seat, who cares? But if you have one where it's a close thing, do you verify their signatures to make sure that they're even eligible to be a candidate? Do you do a
I don't know.
sample of
I
them?
actually think that Andrea's been doing it the last couple of years since I've been on the board. So I don't know if it's a chair thing to do or if it's a chair of the committee thing to do. I don't know. She told me specifically that she spot checks.
I mean, that
Uh,
makes sense.
That's all I know. So let's leave off email because I think it's harder to spot check an email.
But I think you're right in that the email or phone number, the purpose of that is to be able to contact that person in the event you want to, get a confirmation from them. So it can be either, I think, as long as they provide something. If they don't provide anything, I can't do anything. I can short of knocking on their door.
But what happens if Andrea goes down this list and sends out emails to people and all those people's, ignore the emails? Like they don't even see it or it goes into a spam filter.
Yeah, that's true.
I
Emails are not
I
as
think
responsive.
the best thing is to just get the phone number. And I told the people that were reluctant, I said, you may get one phone call for verifying that you signed this, but we wouldn't be calling you again. And they were agreeable to that.
Yeah, I
I
think
got all the
that's
phone numbers.
that's how I told people too, because I do know some people were like my phone number, and I said all they're going to do is just, they're going to use it to verify that you agreed to sign this paper, and that's all. But like I said,
Yeah.
I don't know if Andrea really does it or not, so I don't know. I have no idea.
That's why I
Yeah, I
said they
think,
might call you.
Yeah.
I mean, I turned in 21 signatures last time, so how many
Yeah, the
signatures?
first year I ran, I turned in like I think almost 40 signatures or something. So no way is she going to check every single one.
Yeah.
Um, oh, so here's another, oh shit. Oh, down at the bottom of the voter information and registration form, there's these really weird boxes down at the bottom that says, please check one of the following boxes with the method in which you intend to vote. And it was like
Uh-huh.
a polling location or a post mail. I don't think that's even
But
necessary.
It's a
that
random.
whole section can be taken out because it's going to happen at the same time as the voting.
Right, I agree. So, and you know what? I don't care. If they, I don't care where they're intending on voting. Where they vote is what's important. So I always thought that was a weird thing to have on here. So
Yeah, the
I will
way I
just
see it is
remove that.
these instructions should be the same regardless of how you vote. It should be,
Exactly.
yeah.
Okay. And then I will go back through each one of these with a fine tooth comb and just remove and eliminate stuff that we don't need. The only other thing that I wrote here was this candidate petition is also used for people who are being appointed and not elected. And elected is 20 votes, where appointments are 10 signatures. So there were a number of places where I wanted to add that into the candidate instructions and the forms where they put their addresses, just so that we don't have to have two separate ones or tell people, But my concern was, are we going to confuse people if we do that? Like, are they going to go, wait, is this an election or am I being appointed? I mean, they might not understand the difference right now. So I wasn't even sure if it needed to be mentioned. And then secondly, in relation to that, there was a note on here that said members who have been appointed to a seat within the year but are running for re-election do not need to obtain new signatures. Previously obtained signatures will be counted towards the election requirement. But the problem is if somebody was appointed within the year, they only collected 10 signatures, right? But now they
Yeah.
need 20 for the election.
So here's the way that works with bylaws. They can regurgitate some of those if it's in their district towards their other thing. So I think for that reason, we should have a date line on the signature sheet. And if
Hmm.
that signature is within a year of, the election,
But
they can
we
reuse.
don't have a date on the petition.
Well, let's add one.
Well, why
Where
don't we
we
just?
don't have a date signed when the person signs it.
I
I'm
think it
not so
should be.
sure we need that because Andrea would have collected the original signatures in the first place, right? So we could just state if you are running for election after you have been appointed, you will need to collect an additional 10 signatures.
Yeah,
Because, like I said, Andrea still has those signatures somewhere.
all
Does
right.
that sound
As long as
fair?
it's dated in some fashion, I guess. I guess if they were appointed anytime after whatever the election month,
Yeah, but I'm
that
not going to
doesn't work.
take 10 people off of my list and forge their signature. So their original signature was on the original document that they submitted. So
Yeah,
I
so it's
think
have to
we
be
should
safe.
just,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm sure she saves them.
I
yeah.
think there should be a date on this signature form, and then just provide one of them with the
It's at the top
with
of
the
it.
instructions, and then if they need to duplicate it, they can use 10 on one page, or they could duplicate it and a second page for 20 to
Yeah.
submit them.
So I had a real challenge with this, laying this out for, because originally they didn't, the forms that I've been using the last couple of elections didn't actually have a signature line on it. It was just address, phone number. And Andrea and I were like, where's the signature? And I said, I don't know where the signature is. I was just picking up a form that somebody used even before I got on the board. So we went ahead and we added a signature box, right? But when I did that and the way that I laid this out, it ended up taking like it required like I could only get 8 on a sheet. I can't get 10.
And mine didn't print out right. It's like the eighth one is kind of cut off, and there's a big white space at the top. So
Oh, that's weird. I don't even know what
yeah,
that is. That's weird.
I think it
but I
needs to be
think
one line per signature, even if it has to be layout form. It's too confusing when it's 2 lines. Make the boxes taller if they need to go to the next to fill more info in. But that'd be my recommendation on that.
you know what I
Can
do?
you sketch
I
that out
don't
for me?
I don't
Yes.
do these kind of forms in Word because it's too hard for me. I do them in Excel
Oh, yeah.
because you can adjust the cells to any size, and they're not so
Yeah,
skittish.
yeah, and this, I
Yeah,
mean, this is done in Word, and it is all laid out in a table, and each one is a little table, but it was just so much information, and I wanted to be able to allow enough room for people to write because it's like
yeah.
before it was so tiny, and people were like, I can barely write. So that's what I mean. I only got like 8 on a sheet because of this, but if
I could give it a try in Excel if you want.
and see if we can get it down to, well,
Get 10 on
even
a
before
10 on.
it was 2 lines per info. Like in the old one, here,
Uh-huh.
let me
Looking
pop
at it right
open
now.
the
It is very simple. It was 20 a sheet. I had never seen that one before that I got from you by email.
yeah,
I think
candidate app.
Word is the best way to do it. You can adjust the height and all that stuff. It can be 10 or
Well,
12.
one could, yes, but I can't.
Yeah,
I don't
see,
know.
I'm
It's
gonna
so
share
frustrating.
I'm
Let
gonna
me give it
share
a
my
shot.
screen.
The fact is, we know what we need to put on there. We need to put. Um, do
So
we even need to make them check if they're a property owner, resident, or business owner? I mean, I guess.
do you guys see how this original form
Yeah,
was?
I remember how that was.
Yeah, and there was no signature line on it. So there was no way for anybody to like prove that it was you, you know?
Yeah, well, I had them sign it actually.
Yeah, but then you
Yeah.
can't read the signatures.
And then you can't read it, so you don't know what their name is.
Right. So that's why I generated,
Yeah,
this one because now we actually have space for people to write and to sign and we could read it.
yeah.
So
But yeah, you should be able to.
I'm
Seems
thinking we
like you
don't
should be
really.
able to get 10 on there.
We don't really need the box for them to say whether they're a business owner, property owner, or renter necessarily. I mean, as long, I guess it helps.
Well, that is
And
part of that's part of the
to-
bylaws is that they have to live here or work here or whatever
Well, I
to.
get that, but that was on the top of the form already, and they
And-
didn't check anything. They just supposedly read the form and agreed to it. I
And
mean, I
like-
guess it would help prevent people from maybe voting that otherwise maybe shouldn't. Maybe some people will be honest and be like, "Oh, wait, actually, I'm just visiting. I'm not any of these three things."
Well, do we think that it's kind of up to the candidate to clarify this information to people before they sign it? Because if so, I'm happy removing that checkbox area.
Yeah. Plus, it's confusing because you could be all three.
I
Should we-
think that the phone box doesn't need to be that big either.
I think we could fit them all on one line, even if it's layout mode. I'm willing to reformat it.
Okay. I will send you the file and you can play around with it as you want.
And if people want to distribute these around their neighborhood and get one signature per sheet and compile them, that's up to them.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, so let me what I'll do is I will take like the suggestions that we've already agreed upon and I will how do I stop sharing my screen? Here we go. I'll go ahead and update the forms and then I will send them to you, Kevin, and you can play with them however you want. And then we can just keep going back and forth until we get something that works and makes sense. Is that cool?
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear what we're doing here. It's got to make it as simple as possible.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I mean, and that's the thing. It's very confusing. I always thought even the whole voting process here was confusing. But okay, and then Virginia, I don't have you like written down for anything in particular, like a duty. Do you want to do anything in particular?
Whatever needs to be done.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have my heart set on any particular
Okay.
aspect of it.
Well, we'll definitely be sending you the link of whatever Corey builds. So it's going to need to be tested by all of
Okay.
us. And then maybe once Kevin and I have hashed out the forms, we can send them to you as well, and you can proof them and let me know if you see anything that needs to be changed.
Yeah, I think I could look at them from the point of view of the voter and see if they would all have the same experience if they were voting from mail drop or virtual. The time and date should be the same, and they should
Right.
be getting the same information and have the same requirements, and
Okay.
so it's fair to everyone.
And then I'll throw Jane into that mix as well, so that she can prove some stuff. But I think we've hashed this out enough to be able to kind of get moving.
Yeah, is it time for Jeopardy?
It's almost 7:30.
Oh yeah, I gotta go.
Okay.
It's 7:25.
All right. All right. Well, thank you for showing up.
All right. Thanks.
All right,
Bye.
is this recorded?
Bye.
Hey, Kevin, I'll send you the stuff. Yeah,
Is
it's
this
recorded.
Okay, great.
Yes. I'll send you the stuff probably tomorrow.
All right.
Okay. Cool. See
Okay,
you.
good night.
Good night.